Delta and American Airlines say they will permanently drop ticket change fees for most domestic flights.
Big development in the airline industry today. Not a merger, but an unusually close partnership between two of the largest carriers, United Airlines and JetBlue.
What if the three biggest airlines in America, the ones that fly over 500 million passengers every year, suddenly took a step that could shake Boeing to its core? American Airlines, Delta Airlines, and United, the true symbols of U.S. aviation power, have just made a huge announcement. But the real shock lies in the silence behind that decision.
There are new warnings about the future of the ailing airline industry. This week, American and United announced plans to shed tens of thousands of jobs.
Why are these three giants staying away from Boeing's most advanced aircraft, the 77X, while airlines around the world are rushing to buy it? Could this quiet refusal be the beginning of a major aviation shakeup? Let's uncover the real story, the hidden strategy, and the billion-dollar decision that no one saw coming. The silence that spoke louder than words. It wasn't announced in a flashy press conference. There were no bold headlines or sweeping declarations. But behind the polished smiles and corporate silence, a decision was made, one that quietly sent tremors through the aviation world. American Airlines, Delta, and United, three titans of U.S. air travel, looked at Boeing's most advanced aircraft, the 77X, and turned away. No orders, no public excitement, just silence. And in aviation, silence is rarely meaningless. Boeing had bet everything on the 777X, a futuristic aircraft built to redefine long-haul flying, bigger, more efficient, and armed with revolutionary technology. It was supposed to be the crown jewel of modern aviation. So, when these three major airlines, the lifeblood of domestic and international U.S. travel, showed no interest, industry insiders took notice. Why would they ignore a jet that's faster, cleaner, and built to save millions in fuel? What did they see that others didn't? The questions grew louder as months turned to years. While Emirates, Qatar, and Lufthansa lined up with billion-dollar orders, the American skies stayed eerily quiet. This isn't just about one aircraft. It's about trust, timing, and a deeper shift in airline strategy. Because when the biggest names in the business walk away from a technological marvel, it's not by accident, it's by design. And this design? It starts with a hidden struggle inside Boeing's own hangars. The jet that promised too much. Back in 2013, Boeing made a promise to the world. The 777X would be the aircraft that changes everything.
Boeing has been developing the twin-engine jet, a new version of its popular 777 aircraft, since 2013.
Bigger wings, smarter systems, cleaner engines, and more comfort for passengers all packed into one jet. It wasn't just an upgrade. It was supposed to be the future of long-distance air travel. Instead of designing something completely new, Boeing decided to evolve what had already worked: the 777. They blended its proven structure with cutting-edge features from the newer 787 Dreamliner. Composite materials for strength and lightness, massive carbon fiber wings, advanced cockpit tech, and aerodynamic tweaks for better fuel use. It was a smart move on paper, cost-effective and familiar. But that strategy came with risk. Boeing had already tried something similar with the 737 MAX, and the world remembers how that turned out. With the 777X, things didn't fall apart in the sky, but they began to fall apart on the ground. One issue after another started piling up: missed deadlines, faulty parts, failed tests, and costly delays. And yet, for all its problems, the 777X remains one of the most impressive machines ever built on paper. Foldable wingtips to fit tight airport gates, GE's gigantic fuel-saving engines, a cabin designed for comfort, larger windows, better pressure, and less jet lag. It had every box ticked. But in aviation, building dreams is easy. Delivering them on time and without disaster is where the real challenge begins. And for Boeing, that challenge was about to get much worse. When innovation meets reality. The 777X was meant to be a triumph of modern engineering, and in many ways, it still is. One of its boldest innovations is its foldable wingtips. With a wingspan stretching 235 feet, the plane needed to be long to glide more efficiently and save fuel. But such a size also meant it couldn't fit at most airport gates. Boeing's solution? Create wings that fold upward once the aircraft lands. A move never seen before on any commercial jet. It was a daring idea, and it worked. Then came the engines, the GE9X, built by General Electric. These aren't just big engines. They're the largest jet engines ever made, with a fan so wide it's bigger than the body of a Boeing 737. Each one produces over 100,000 pounds of thrust. But despite their power,
the GE9X engine successfully generated 100,000 pounds of thrust.
They were designed to burn less fuel, make less noise, and run cleaner than anything before. Inside, passengers were promised something close to luxury. Better air quality, more space, higher humidity, and windows nearly 20% larger than older models. It was more than just travel. It was comfort at 40,000 feet. But then, the problems began. Boeing had placed too much trust in automation. Robots were brought in to speed up assembly, especially for the complex fuselage. But instead of saving time, they made costly mistakes, misaligned parts, frequent breakdowns, and production slowdowns. Eventually, Boeing abandoned the robots and returned to manual labor. And just like that, innovation started turning into delay. The delays that shook confidence. What began as small hiccups soon snowballed into a full-blown crisis. The first major blow came from Boeing's brand-new composite wing facility in Everett, Washington, a critical part of the 77X program. The factory was supposed to build the advanced carbon fiber wings faster and more efficiently than ever before. But instead, it struggled. Equipment delays, staff shortages, and technical misfires meant the wings weren't being produced at full speed. Months passed, then years. Next came the engines. While the GE9X was a masterpiece in theory, real-world testing told a different story. The engines faced repeated performance issues. One even suffered damage during transportation, causing another round of costly delays. GE had to return to the drawing board, re-engineer parts, and push back its certification timeline. Without certified engines, Boeing couldn't move forward. But the most alarming moment came in mid-2024. During a routine test, engineers discovered a structural issue with the engine mounts.
GE engines, quote, there are some challenges. They're working through their own testing. So we have to do some retesting.
The very parts that hold the massive engines to the wings. The danger was no small matter. A faulty mount could lead to an engine detaching mid-air, a terrifying scenario, and one that echoed the tragedy of American. When customers lose patience for Boeing, delays were becoming the norm. But for customers, patience was running out. Airlines build their long-term strategies around aircraft delivery timelines. When a promised jet doesn't arrive on schedule, it doesn't just mess up plans, it costs millions. Emirates, Boeing's biggest 777X customer with over 200 orders, had enough. Their executives publicly criticized Boeing, calling the delays unacceptable and warning that the situation was putting pressure on their global operations. Other airlines took more direct action. Some canceled orders. Others chose to defer them indefinitely, moving to competitors like Airbus instead. The message was clear. Even a world-class design can't survive without timely execution. And yet, through all this, one question stood out. Why weren't any of the big U.S. carriers involved to begin with? Why had American Airlines, Delta, and United never placed a single order for the 77X, even when Boeing was making promises years ago? That silence, the absence of any commitment, was now starting to make sense. These carriers weren't late to the party. They had chosen not to attend at all. Was it caution, foresight, or simply a lack of need? As the world's attention focused on Emirates and international buyers, the U.S. giants stayed quiet, and their reasons were rooted in something deeper than just delay. It was about strategy, geography, passenger habits, and a fleet philosophy completely different from the rest of the world. And now, it was finally time to reveal why they walked away. Why the big three said no. At first, it didn't make sense. Why would the three most powerful airlines in the United States, American, Delta, and United,
American Airlines, Delta, and United, known as the Big Three, all have similar business models, so competition comes from hub locations, product offerings, and route networks.
avoid what was supposed to be the most advanced long-haul jet ever built? The answer isn't found in a press release. It's found in how American Airlines operate, and how that model is different from the rest of the world. Unlike global giants like Emirates or Qatar Airways, U.S. airlines don't rely on a single mega hub. Instead, they use a multi-hub strategy. That means Delta spreads its flights across cities like Atlanta, Detroit, and Salt Lake City. United relies on hubs in Chicago, Newark, and Houston. American uses Dallas, Charlotte, and Miami. It's a web, not a central pillar. And that changes everything. You see, when you don't funnel thousands of passengers through one massive hub, filling a giant plane like the 77X becomes difficult. This aircraft is built to carry around 400 passengers in a 3-class layout. That's a lot of seats and a lot of risk. Because in the US, travelers prefer flexibility, multiple departures a day, more choices, smaller, more frequent flights. A huge plane flying once a day isn't appealing to American customers. It's the opposite of what they want. So when Boeing brought the 777X to the table, the US airlines looked at its size and said, "It's not for us." And they had good reason to think that way. But fleet size was just the beginning. The problem of too much plane. For the US carriers, the Boeing 777X wasn't just too big. It was too much plane for the wrong kind of market. In the US, air travel is deeply affected by seasonal swings. Summer vacations and holidays bring a rush of travelers. But come January or September, demand drops sharply. That means flights with 400 seats can quickly turn into flights with 280 passengers and 120 empty seats. That's a financial disaster, not a success. Even on long routes like New York to Los Angeles or Miami to Seattle, airlines often choose smaller wide-body jets like the Boeing 787 Dreamliner or the Airbus A350. These aircraft are large enough to handle long distances but small enough to adjust to demand. It's the sweet spot. Less risk, more flexibility. And then there's the way passengers fly in the US. American travelers like choices, not limitations. They prefer the option to pick a flight every few hours rather than waiting all day for a single giant departure. So instead of packing 400 passengers into one aircraft, airlines break that load into smaller chunks spread throughout the day. The 777X, with its massive size and limited frequency potential, just didn't fit that mold. So, while Boeing was thinking big, the US airlines were thinking smart and lean. And this growing mismatch between design and demand only widened when geography came into play. Geography doesn't lie. If you want to understand why US airlines rejected the Boeing 777X, just take a look at the map.
Airline will refuse delivery of Boeing's 777X jets.
Geography tells a story, one that Boeing couldn't rewrite. Airlines like Emirates, Qatar Airways, and Turkish Airlines thrive because of where they're based. Their hubs, Dubai, Doha, Istanbul, sit perfectly between Asia, Europe, and Africa. That means they're natural connectors. People fly from India to London, from Bangkok to Paris, and pass through these cities in the middle. It makes sense to use massive planes like the A380 or the 77X. These airlines need to carry hundreds of people at once, across huge distances with limited stops. But the United States isn't a global stopover. It's a destination. When someone flies to New York, Los Angeles, or Chicago, they're usually ending their journey, not connecting to somewhere else. That means there's no need for a 400-seat aircraft to pass through and offload hundreds of people transferring flights. The US just doesn't act like a giant global hub, and the 777X was built for a hub model. To make matters worse, US airports aren't designed for quick international transit. Unlike in Europe or Asia, passengers in America can't stay in a clean, sterile transfer zone. Even if you're just connecting, you have to go through immigration and customs, a slow, messy process that kills the efficiency of hub-based flying. So, for American Airlines, Delta, and United, the 777X wasn't just a plane that didn't fit the fleet, it didn't fit the country. The Airbus advantage. While Boeing struggled to get the 777X off the ground, both literally and figuratively, Airbus quietly stepped into the spotlight. The timing couldn't have been better. As US Airlines hesitated to commit to oversized jets, Airbus offered something that fit their strategy perfectly: the A350. This wasn't just luck, it was smart design. The Airbus A350 came in different versions: the A350-900 and the larger A350-1000. Both were fuel-efficient, capable of flying long distances, and most importantly, not too big. They gave airlines flexibility without the risks that came with the jumbo-sized 777X. Delta Airlines, for example, chose the A350-900 and later placed orders for the A350-1000, directly targeting the same role the 777X was meant to play. Meanwhile, United doubled down on its Boeing 787 fleet, and American Airlines invested heavily in the 787-8 and 787-9. These aircraft were already flying, already tested, and already trusted. In the airline business, trust and timing are everything. You can't afford to plan your future around a jet that's still stuck in testing 5 years behind schedule. And Boeing's delays gave Airbus an open runway. It wasn't that the 777X was a bad aircraft. It was that Airbus showed up with the right plane at the right time. A plane that didn't try to dominate, just deliver. And as Boeing battled public doubt, strikes, and testing failures, Airbus simply kept delivering what airlines needed: a new home in the skies, even as the passenger version of the 777X struggled to find love from US Airlines. Boeing quietly shifted its focus. If the big three carriers wouldn't buy the jet, maybe someone else would. Someone with very different needs. That's when the spotlight turned to cargo. Unlike passenger airlines, cargo carriers like FedEx and UPS don't care about seat size, legroom, or jet lag. They care about one thing: efficiency. The ability to fly long distances with maximum payload at the lowest cost possible. And on paper, the freighter version of the 777X, called the 777-8F, checks every box. In 2022, Boeing officially launched the cargo variant. It promised up to 25% better fuel efficiency than older freighters, greater range, and more capacity, all built on a platform already engineered for long-haul power. For companies like FedEx, which connect the US to Europe, India, and China on a daily basis, the 777-8F could be a game changer. UPS, with its massive operation in Louisville, Kentucky, was also watching closely. As global e-commerce keeps rising and overnight delivery becomes the new standard, larger, more cost-effective freighters are in demand. And here's the difference. While passenger jets need customer loyalty and brand trust, cargo jets only need performance. If the 777-8F delivers, it could become the backbone of American cargo fleets before a single passenger ever steps on board the passenger version. In the sky, it's not always the flashiest plane that wins, it's the one that works. Will the big three ever buy the 777X? For now, American Airlines, Delta, and United remain on the sidelines when it comes to the 77X. But does that mean they'll never buy it? Not exactly, because while the present looks uncertain, the future still holds possibilities, especially as older aircraft begin to retire. Take United Airlines, for example. They already operate a large fleet of 777-300 ERs, the very model the 777X is designed to replace. Some of those jets are aging fast, and although United has leaned heavily into the 787 for most of its long-haul routes, but it won't be before 2028 or later. After all, testing is done and the aircraft earns the trust it once had on paper.
The purpose of the testing that we're doing here in Oklahoma is what we call landing performance and brakes testing.
As for American Airlines, the approach is even more cautious. They skipped the 777X entirely back in 2018 and focused instead on smaller, more adaptable jets like the 7878 and 7879. But by 2030, their aging 777-200 ERs will need replacements. If fuel prices rise sharply, or if international routes shift toward higher capacity travel again, American might reconsider. But perhaps the most unlikely customer is Delta, a carrier that's historically favored Airbus. With its growing fleet of A350s, Delta has already chosen its side. The question now isn't if the 777X can fly. It's whether it can prove it's worth flying. The price of being late. In aviation, timing is everything. A brilliant aircraft delivered too late can be as useless as a failed one. And that's the painful reality Boeing is now facing with the 777X. When Boeing first revealed the aircraft in 2013, it was hailed as the future. The plan was to have it in the skies by 2020. But now, in 2025, not a single paying passenger has boarded one. The latest estimate? Deliveries by 2026, if nothing else goes wrong. And in those 6 years of delays, the industry didn't stand still. Airlines had to make choices. They couldn't afford to wait forever. Schedules had to be built. Routes had to be served. Aircraft had to be ordered. So while Boeing was still working through engine fixes and structural issues, Airbus filled the gap, offering planes that were available, certified, and reliable. The longer the wait stretched, the more confidence faded. Even long-time Boeing customers began to hedge their bets or walk away entirely. And that's the harsh cost of being late in this industry. It's not just about missing deadlines, it's about missing trust. For American, Delta, and United, the delay only strengthened their decision to wait. Why gamble on an unfinished promise when proven options are already flying? Why risk billions on an aircraft still stuck in the hangar? The 777X didn't just lose time, it lost the momentum Boeing was counting on. The comeback Boeing hopes for. Despite everything, the delays, the technical flaws, the fading trust, Boeing hasn't given up on the 777X, far from it. Behind the scenes, engineers, test pilots, and production teams are working around the clock to bring this aircraft to life, and they know the stakes couldn't be higher. For Boeing, the 777X isn't just a jet. It's a statement, a chance to prove that American aerospace can still lead, still innovate, and still compete with Airbus on the world stage. The company is pouring billions into finishing the project, certifying the plane, and finally getting it into the hands of customers, even if those customers are cargo carriers first. And if the 777X succeeds in cargo, it could be the quiet comeback Boeing needs. FedEx and UPS may give the aircraft the real-world experience it needs to restore its reputation, flying thousands of miles daily, logging data, and proving that it's not just a dream on paper. Then, and only then, might U.S. passenger airlines take a second look. By 2028 or 2029, older jets will need replacing. International routes may evolve. And if the 777X is fully certified, fully tested, and delivering on its promises, American carriers may finally be ready to buy. But make no mistake, Boeing is running out of second chances. This comeback has to be real. There's no more room for delay. The question now is, will it rise or fall short once again? A different kind of victory. Boeing may not win the 777X race the way it hoped, with grand orders from U.S. giants. But sometimes, victory comes quietly. If FedEx and UPS choose the 777-8F for their cargo fleets, Boeing could still secure a long-term win, not with headlines, but with steady, dependable service. Cargo doesn't demand comfort. It demands performance. If the 777X proves itself by flying across continents day after day, it will earn something far more valuable than applause: trust. And trust spreads. Passenger airlines like United and American don't need promises. They need proof. If the cargo version delivers reliability, fuel savings, and efficiency, it won't take long before those numbers speak louder than Boeing ever could. So yes, Boeing lost time, lost momentum. But if it succeeds in the cargo world, the 777X could still rise not as a media sensation, but as an aircraft that earned its place, flight by flight. The sky still awaits. The Boeing 777X was built to lead a new era in aviation, but delays, design challenges, and shifting strategies forced it into a long, uncertain pause. While international airlines placed early bets, U.S. giants like American, Delta, and United stayed silent, choosing caution over commitment. Now, as cargo carriers prepare to test the freighter version, Boeing's chance at redemption is still alive. If the aircraft proves reliable and efficient, trust can return. And with older planes retiring by the end of the decade, the door may quietly reopen. The 777X's story in America isn't over, just unfinished. But what do you think? Will Boeing's most advanced jet finally take flight with U.S. Airlines, or is it too late? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold aviation stories. The sky is still watching,